please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, additions to the agenda tonight. Do you have any? No. Good. I have no remarks. Open public comments regarding agenda items only, please. And our auditors are not here yet, so we will skip them. Approval of regular meeting minutes and budget meeting minutes, please, from December 3rd and 4th.
Mr. Chair, I move to accept the minutes of December 3rd and 4th as printed.
Second.
Moved and seconded to accept the meeting minutes from December 3rd and 4th as printed. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? I'm going to get you right where you sit down. Come right up and come talk to us.
Listen, man, I've been in the car for 3.5 hours, boy. Can
Walk
I
slow.
stand up? Absolutely. Where you guys want me?
Right here.
Can we steal another chair?
I don't have to sit up there.
Oh, stop. Yeah, you don't worry.
There's 2 chairs. Come on up.
Yeah, Cindy's gonna join us, all right?
Perfect.
Please. Tired. It's been a long year.
Sit in it. Okay. Scoot over. Getting us all on camera.
Good evening.
There we go.
Doing good.
So you have the floor. Talk to us.
I'm Ron Smith, principal with R.H.R. Smith & Company. I just spent the past 4 hours driving in a blizzard over here, so if I'm a little off my game, I apologize, but certainly here to talk and close out 2018 and talk about 2019. I apologize it's taken me so long to get here. Let me tell you this, I had a death in my family this summer on the 4th of July, and I know Cindy's had a long year, so here we are, and certainly actually we're prepared to talk about 2019 as well. So we sent Cindy a draft today.
Yep.
So she hasn't had time to review it. We'll hit the highlights and certainly give her a chance to respond over the course of time and review. But I think we can hit some of the highlights of that and go back and start where we, this fiscal year, start at the beginning of the year, 6/30/18, and come right up to today.
Sure.
And tell you where you're at financially and certainly go over any questions you guys may have.
Perfect.
So going back to June 30, 18, I'm going to start with your general fund. Your general fund had about $700,000 of surplus, of which I think $330,000 was unassigned. And then we had the rest of it, which is about $360,000, $370,000 assigned for a multitude of purposes, that was certainly either committed or obligated, whether it be at town meeting or through the board, through your statutory rights. Based on a general fund budget of about $2 million, we like to see your surplus at 30, 60 to 90 days of that. And that's what our industry benchmarks say. So where are you at with that $330,000? Probably somewhere right around 45, maybe 50 days on June 30, 2018. And we actually see that going up a little bit for 2019, up to around $400,000, just based on Cindy's review and whether or not we got all the carry forwards and restrictions in the right place. We actually see that going up in 2019 to the unassigned, the unrestricted, to about $400,000. And I think the restricted is going to stay right about there too, where it was on June 30, 2018. And Cindy just hasn't had the time to go over that, but
We just got it today.
yeah, she just got it today. We wanted to make sure we put it in her hands, but we're pretty confident, that the number she gave us, we made little to no adjustments on, as far as the transfers go. So I think more importantly, it's just going to be a function of where the restrictions are with the balances forward, at the end of the year. I think probably the thing that stands out the most, is with this town, is the fact that the money that it's obligated to capital improvements and infrastructure. And on June 30, 2018, you have a emergency capital reserve account with about $1.6 million into it. You have a capital reserve account with about $1.5 million into it. You have another capital account with about $400,000 into it, and I think you have a culvert account with $57,000, in it on 18. So you had about $3.6 million on 2018 in these various reserve accounts, and I think that separates you, from a lot of your neighboring municipalities, because obviously you had the foresight to put some of that money away, for those intended purposes. In 2019, you use some of it, and the expectations are it's going to go down to about $3.3 million, where we see it on June 30, 2019. Your emergency reserve dropped about 100. I believe your capital reserve dropped about 90. I actually think the culvert might have gone up in 2019, but your other capital reserve account went down. They all went down cumulatively about $300,000. But I still think that you get the A, for average and score for certainly having that money put away into that capital reserve account. A lot of municipalities of your size don't have that. So obviously at some point in time in need, at some point in time in the past, while you had the ability to do it, I think you did a lot of right things. And clearly that money is statutorily set. There's a statute that clearly governs what you can use that money for, in the future. And I think you know what that is. And my advice would probably be is to make sure that your plan, make sure that your future needs, and make sure that the stars align with that $3.3 million, because I'll tell you, I am sure when your largest taxpayer was here, that was probably a reason why you were able to move some of that money into that capital reserve. They're not here anymore, and certainly it's going to be hard to do that. So I think that, what I would probably recommend is maybe what your needs were once upon a time ago. Make sure that there's still needs today. And if you need to deobligate that or reassign, that money to other capital needs, or different capital needs, do that, while you still can and certainly have that money. You've got about $1.6 million sitting in trust in 2018 and 2019. A lot of that's in capital reserve accounts. Again, you've got a lot of capital reserve accounts. I think that there's like $300,000, sitting in the capital reserve accounts and the special revenues, that you have. You've got some road money that's sitting over there. You've got a bunch of special projects that are sitting over there. You've got about, I think, $250,000 in cemeteries, in 2018 and 2019, sitting in those permanent funds. So you got a lot of funds, you got a lot of, you're a busy town, and you've got a lot of funds, that there are purposes, for, whether it be an ordinance, a special town meeting, or an outside intervention looking in saying we want that money, put away, for us, for that day. You've got quite a bit of money put away for all those special purposes too. So I would argue your special purposes are actually healthier than the town of Vernon's general fund that you vote on every March, itself. But the fact that you've got all that money put away for those calculated reasons, I think really, depicts the whole financial picture of the town, which I really think puts you in a great financial condition, certainly for this town. So I give your, because there's always room for improvement, I give you probably a financial score, a B+, for sure. I think that you've done a lot of good things while you had the ability to do good things. I think there's some challenging times ahead of you now, with your tax base. I think you've got almost close to $200,000 in a reappraisal fund that'll probably be, certainly discussed and talked about now, as you try to go through some revaluation with your tax base. So you've done some right things, to put some money away for that day, when...
We just did a townwide reappraisal.
You did, is it this year?
Oh, they just finished it.
Yeah, so obviously, the intentions of that money, clearly, has been met, and probably certainly necessary, to go back and see where your tax base is and what the values, of your grand list is, certainly for the municipality. So, but on June 30th, I think a large part of that money was still there, to spend for the reappraisal. I know it wasn't 18, I actually thought it was in 19 too.
Yeah, we spent quite a bit of it.
Well, I can tell you exactly how much you spent, so if you guys all want to know.
19.
19. So again, the grade is I'd say is a B+. I think while you had the money, you certainly were able to put some of that away for the reasons, such as a reappraisal and that you had right now. What's that?
176.
176 so it's 176 on June 30, 2019. And it sounds like you've gone through quite a bit of that.
Yeah.
As of today. So without going through 70 pages, there's the state of the town, for sure. And yeah, I think that Cindy does a great job with the books, where the fact that when she gives us the information, we're able to deliver it back the same way it looks, and that quite doesn't always. We do, Sam and I and our company, we've got 30 professionals. We do 350 governments in the states of Maine, Vermont, and New Hampshire. And let me tell you, your books are very clean, on how they're given us, and you can just tell the great pride, that goes into that work, and certainly it doesn't always roll that way, when you're doing these audits, for sure. I think we probably do about 150 municipalities, probably somewhere close to 150 school systems, and then a rest, including state government itself, and it just doesn't. The way that when you come in and do an audit, there's never an expectation that what you're going to be given is just clean, and your books are clean. They're very clean. So certainly I'll make that statement right now. I think one of the things that we had talked about, with points, is, and one of the topics of interest is how you guys move pieces of paper. The library, I think was one of those issues and talking points, and clearly as far as following some kind of statutory protocol like the town does, my recollection with the library is that some of these bills that are being paid over at the library are actually getting approved after the fact. The checks are getting dispersed, yet not going, to the trustees, until after the checks have already been dispersed. I'm sure that's not a best practice and something that you probably definitely want to take care of. And there's a lot of statutory precedent when it comes to libraries and the Board of Trustees and autonomy. No matter what the statute says, there needs to be some control before those funds are dispersed, not after. And I think we saw clear instances in both years of that, and again, we discourage that practice for sure. So we're not saying anything's wrong with the disbursements, we're just saying the process and the protocol. Clearly, as you go through here at the town, you have a warrant that you approve at a public meeting, and then those funds have dispersed. It's actually, in the library's case, opposite. A lot of those funds have been dispersed and then approved after the fact. And again, we don't consider that a best practice. So that'd probably be one of the bigger talking points that we had, I think, during the course of the year. Other than that, just minor things as far as what other municipalities do and conversations we've had in Cindy and getting into Vernon and how you guys do it here. I think she does a great job with your books. Absolutely. So.
Chris, questions? Jeff?
I don't. I wish I did to make your long travel a little
Hey,
more
listen, no worries.
worthwhile.
We're going back to Brattleboro, have some fun, then we're working our way up to White River tomorrow. So
All right, I'm not going to hold you up there.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming. though.
Listen, glad we could. So, and I again apologize for taking me to. It's been a bad year for me, a very long, heartening year. Let me tell you. So,
There's New Year's coming.
what's that?
There's New Year's coming.
It can't get here soon enough. I can tell you that. So, today was a little bit more of a slap in the face on the way over. So,
I'm the library director.
gotcha.
And I read that note, so I guess we have to work that out. I mean, the board only meets once a month,
Yeah.
and that's why that happens,
So,
because I,
so a lot of times there's provisions, Gene, so a lot of times there's provisions, that where statutorily, what you guys can do is designate a member of the board until you convene, together, to sign, that
okay.
warrant, I'll use the same word that
Yeah.
that government uses. So many times for schools and municipalities, you're given some statutory immunity provided you have a policy, and usually it's ratified annually, where you say, hey, we're gonna pick a member of our Board of Trustees, and we know we can't convene 5 together, but we can circulate and get 1 there to sign this off, and we're gonna have a policy or procedure that allows us to do that. That's much better than what you have right now, is probably the best way I can say that. And that would be one thing, certainly, that's a very common practice in the world of government,
Okay.
that you could use.
okay.
So,
And then it's all
but
only,
and I'm just trying to walk you through the
Yeah.
logic. You're doing and you can't make this up. I'll give you a real life situation. You're doing a renovation project to your library. Heck, you're building a new library, okay? And, and your out goes, a $200,000 disbursement to the contractor. Lo and behold, to the satisfaction of your clerk to the works, that the work wasn't done and performed satisfactorily.
Right.
This is a real situation. I'm actually giving you an example. And that contractor has got and cashed his check, and the trustees say, don't pay him. I talked to the clerk of the works, and we're having problem with the quality of his work.
Right.
Too late for that $200,000. It's been delivered in cash. I didn't see it. It never got signed. There's an instance, right there on that, and just take that and just apply that to any vendor, that you do business. And we're not necessarily saying, that the practice is wrong. What we're saying is the Board of Authority had no chance to look at and disseminate and ask questions regarding the funds that are going to get dispersed.
Right.
And there's a lot of money flowing through that library. That library is busy, and so is the town. So our advice would be is, in the worst case scenario, take a delegate of your Board of Trustees and have them sign off at least until you get into a public meeting.
Oh, okay, because then they would still require the.
Yeah.
Right.
at
It can be
least 3
circulated through, we can get into the
signatures
whole issues of
Okay.
the best practices, but it could even be circulated through an email. So, where all the others, see it, but one physically would go on and say, I give permission to release these funds until we congregate together as
Okay.
a respective board, which is a much etter practice than what you have now.
True, true.
Yeah.
One
Yeah.
thing I do have to say is that all the bills that come from the library, Jean does review them
Yep.
and sign them before she gives them to us. We never pay any
Mhm.
bills
Right.
from our office without Jean
Yeah.
signing
Right.
off on it.
So,
Right. Yeah, it's just the timing
Yeah.
of things.
And-
I want
and it's-
Cindy to
and
have
if-
time to do
and
it
if that's the
on
case,
time.
Gene, it sounds like you're the logical spokesperson.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Maybe where somebody with authority, you want to be careful, and just so I'm clear, I just want to make sure you're a select person at this town.
Yes, I am.
You just want to be careful, with any type of conflict of interest, and I'd be more than happy
Oh,
to
yeah.
talk about that.
Oh,
Make
yeah.
sure you don't put yourself in that role.
Right.
But I'd even argue that the board could designate somebody with knowledge to do that, in
Right.
anticipation of that board meeting. There's a lot of better ways to do it than what I think that you're doing now. And I would just probably improve that practice, and if you want to huddle up with Cindy and maybe we can
Yeah.
have a 4-way conversation, we'd enjoy that, Gene,
Yeah,
for sure.
That would be great to
So.
Yeah.
help with that. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Any other questions from the board? Thanks for coming in.
Season's greetings, happy holidays. and
Thank you,
good to
you
meet you.
too.
Good to see you too.
Bills and warrants.
I move that we approve payment of the following warrants. 13T, accounts payable, $58,244.44. 48S payroll, $8,293.20. 49S payroll, $9,192.24.
Second.
Moving and seconded to accept the bills and warrants as read. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Can we go back and do the budget minutes?
Oh, we didn't vote.
We did both at the same time.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we approved them as written, both of them. Okay. Now we are about to head into an executive session on an employee-related matter.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we board and Cindy go into executive session,
Michelle, I
and
would-
Michelle, on appointment or evaluation of public officer employees. Title I, VSA 3133A3.
Second.
Moved and seconded to go into an executive session on an employee-related issue. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? We are in executive session.
You did number 2?
All right. We went into executive session at 6:55 PM. Out at 7:01, no action was taken. Travel and reimbursement policy.
I underlined everything that's different from the one that was added, from the one that we had posted. It was in red, but you couldn't really see the color.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the travel reimbursement policy as amended.
May I add one more thing before we do that? Through talking with the VLCT, there's no record of whether we go to the trainings or whether we don't, and that was questioned, so I believe my addition to this would be that if we go to these trainings, that the literature that is available to us should be brought back, made accessible for everybody on this board, and I feel that we should at that time be able to explain during this meeting what the training was for, how it's going to benefit the town, and this is the literature that is accessible. So if everybody is okay with that, I would like to have that added here.
I'm definitely okay with that. I think that's great.
Yeah, I mean, essentially, Vernon is investing in education that shouldn't be limited just to the participants.
Correct. I also did find in the ordinance book that we have that there is, and I don't know the last time that it was actually used, but there is a reimbursement agreement for training. And I don't recall that that's ever been in there, or that it's ever been used, but it is still in there, and it clearly states that if we pay for you to go to a training and then you up and leave the board, you owe us that money back. And I don't know the board's wishes on that, but it's in that book, it's not being used, so we either have to get rid of it or start using it.
It's not just for the board, it's for anybody.
Any employee that goes to anything paid for by the town.
I think probably the reason you haven't seen much of it is because when they tried to enforce it, it didn't get enforced.
Which, understandable, but it is, so I don't know what the board's pleasure is with that, on whether that needs to stay or whether we need to amend that, look at that again, or what, but that is something that's in the book.
Do you want to look at that again?
Yeah.
Because I did see that when I was pulling this out,
Mhm.
but I think that would be something you would probably sign with your personnel policy, like when you get, it's like.
No,
should be
it's
signed.
specific on there, which training you're going, what the date is and all, so
Oh,
it is.
so you sign it
is
after-
per
before
each
everything?
training, yep. And it looks like you sign that at the same time that you're requesting approval to go to that training.
You should.
So should we add that into here?
I don't,
Before
I'm
you
I'm open
approve
for discussion
this,
on that one,
maybe?
because I didn't realize that until I found it the other
I think
day.
we should keep that separate. You were on the board when that happened, weren't you, Georgia? And it was like, yeah. I'll keep it separate.
Okay. Keep it separate from the policy?
Yeah.
on this? Okay.
Because it is different. You're not just going to a meeting, you're maybe going to a, training how to be a whatever.
So,
I think what needs to be added, it indicates mileage reimbursement, but there's no specific language addressing where somebody would get that from. I mean, I realize, use the federal one, but I think it needs to be stated in here.
Yeah, every year, we as a board reset that.
so you're saying add
Well,
the
just
federal mileage reimbursement on C? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, if you guys think that addresses, the specific figure to use, yeah. You can't put in a specific figure because it's gonna go up with inflation anyways.
And federal is what we use for all town employees.
Yeah, I think that those words ought to be in there.
So just add something like next to mileage reimbursement at federal rate, or?
Yeah. At current federal rate.
Are we allowed to ask questions?
Yeah, once we get through, yep. It should have been done at the beginning of the meeting when, you had the opportunity to speak regarding agenda items, but I know people are here to talk about it, so let's talk about it.
One other question I had was approved for training more than 2 hours, or overnight would be approved more than 2 hours. I was curious as to how long it takes to get to Montpelier, which according to my app is 2 hours and 11 minutes on average.
Oh, I must drive like a jerk then.
You do.
Oh. Well then, we didn't even beat around that one at all, Sandy.
You said it before.
It's funny.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it's totally feasible to get to Montpelier in less than 2 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess it
I'm just saying it's on the
depends on,
borderline, but
it depends on how nitpicky you want to get. Do you want to choose an app that we, no, I swear to God, I mean, we're going to this length, so let's,
Well, another thing
it'll
is
change, but.
Montpelier can have really bad weather when you get up there.
And that's why I asked to make sure that there was things in there that stated the weather. If there was a conference in Burlington that got out at 4 o'clock, I wouldn't, I mean, if you don't want to drive home, then that's a different circumstance that we could address, especially this time of year where it's dark at 3 o'clock.
Yeah.
Or we had the storm that came in, we knew it was coming, and if there was a conference to go up last night, even if it is within that 2 hours, just based on safety, I think that there is some circumstances where we can certainly look outside of that.
so how do you want E to read? Your literature and getting training from the trainer, so to speak, section.
I mean, it's really the literature that I think needs to come back, and I don't know, somebody help me with the wording on this, but just, I think that it would be beneficial that we take the 5 minutes so that we know what happened, and
Do we include it in the following select board meeting packets?
I think so.
The literature?
I think, or, yeah, we can do that. Yep.
Okay.
Some of it can be pretty I mean, that's a lot of paper, just warning you. Usually you get like the entire PowerPoint presentations, I mean,
And you can always download those look them up at VLCT's website too.
Sure, I mean, and it doesn't have to be included in the packet, but
well, that's what.
I think that there needs to be something that comes back that says, yeah, I was at this training that the town is paying for.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Maybe made available to the board members?
sure. And I think that speaking about that for a couple of minutes, just to, hey, this is what it was great, this is how it's going to help the residents of Vernon.
Right.
I think that they're deserving of that, since ultimately it's their money.
Did you want that as number E, or can I just put that where it
Number
makes
8.
sense? I was thinking.
I wasn't gonna say it, Sandy, but but you're on a roll tonight.
Funny. So number 8. Because I think you already said it.
The only thing that I question on this is C. As much as I like both of you, I really don't want to share a hotel room with you, so if either of you want to attend with me, I'm going to pay for my own damn room.
That's fine. Go right ahead.
We won't fight.
Well, we probably don't really want to room with you either. so
No, that's what I'm
good.
kind of getting at, is we don't want to stay together, so.
So then on that, should there be something in there that if you're choosing to not stay in that room, that falls solely on, I mean,
Yeah,
at
that's
this
fine.
point now, we've got to.
Well, I mean, it is. That if this is passed as it is, employees or officials of the same sex attending the same conference shall share lodging, blah, blah, blah.
But it should probably be.
That's part of the policy.
If choosing to
Or pay for their own lodging.
Oh, yes, there needs to be
There you
something,
go.
yeah.
Or pay for their own lodging. And you flip a coin of who does what.
I do need, before you approve this, can I get this approved by the attorney? Because this since you are delineating between sex and, I think I feel better HR-wise if that was looked at.
What do you mean?
Because
That
if
you
I
are
get
writing a policy to
discrimination-
force somebody to share a room with somebody else. It doesn't matter whether you're male or female or, I just want to make sure that HR-wise, we're not crossing a line.
If I identify as a female that night,
Right.
or
That's my only concern with that.
Okay.
Sandy identifies as a male,
And there may be another way to word it, so I
Have the person.
don't see a problem with the current employees.
We could stipulate, depends on if you have a 2X chromosome, then that's why. Yeah, probably is politically incorrect.
yeah, that one might get us in trouble eventually. Okay. We have any other changes or additions to this policy? So we will have it
Well,
vetted.
going back to the question
sorry.
about, the GPS mapping program. I don't know, maybe that's not the worst idea in the world. I mean, apps are gonna come and go, but just say, popular mapping.
I mean, you
Or
could,
put your mileage.
Miles away,
What are you talking about?
instead of hours, miles?
Well, he was, mileage reimbursement, is that what you're talking about?
No.
Oh,
the 2-hour
The 2 hour.
limitation.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, how do you, in other words, like, if my Google Maps says 2 hours and 11 minutes to Montpelier from here, Apple mapping might say,
1 hour and 59 minutes.
yeah,
Yeah.
oh.
it doesn't need to be more complicated than, but, some specificities.
So if you go to miles, you could do 120 miles, because at 60 miles an hour, that's 2 hours.
This is Vermont.
I was just saying, depending on where you're going.
This is Vermont.
Well, I understand that, but
I would say that time, because that affects a conference starting in the morning, and,
yeah,
mileage may not be that great, but if it takes you 3 hours to get there,
sure.
I think the time factor is still
But again,
appropriate.
I guess it's the which one do you use to determine the time? I mean, how, because if I'm using Google Maps and Jeff is using,
MapQuest.
MapQuest, and you're using Waze, and you think you're okay based on your Waze, and Jeff and I look at our 2 apps and we're like, that was 1 hour and 45 minutes, and yours says 2 hours and 15 minutes, and then we have a conflict.
So print it off and add it to your request.
I like it.
Or you just keep searching for an app that's gonna tell you less than 2 hours.
That's your job.
Oh, Lord. Okay, so we're happy with the 2 hours, and when the request is made, we all use our heads about what 2 hours is. Yes?
Do you want to put the documentation from the travel app in the hours? I'm sorry, was that a joke or am I adding that?
You suggested printing something off.
Yeah.
I guess if there's some,
Although if you drive it all the time, you're not gonna use the app, But if there's, so I would leave it the way it is, and then if the question comes up that, I said it took longer, you can say why, and I said, well, this is what Rand McNally told me, and I can go back and, you can always reprint.
Okay.
To prove
Rand
it.
McNally.
All right, so it's old school, okay? Thank you, Chris. Yeah.
Still on my car. Still on my car.
Side of the table.
I carry one in my car.
I was
I
going
used
on
to,
MapQuest.
not anymore.
Yeah, that's if you want us to go back and find it.
All right. Anything else on this one? On this policy? So we will get those couple things rewritten, throw it up to Larry, get his nod, and approve it next time around. Sound good? Okay.
Do you want to take floor questions?
Sure. Questions?
2 questions. Why do you go with the federal mileage reimbursement instead of state mileage reimbursement?
Cindy always recommends.
That's what Cindy recommends? Okay. Yep.
That's what the board voted on
Okay, thank you.
years ago.
Okay.
It wasn't me that made that decision, it was the board.
Just asking. And why don't we look into renting a car instead of doing mileage reimbursement? It saves the state of Vermont a lot of money by renting a car as opposed to paying you back reimbursement for mileage.
Yeah, I can see that, because if you're running up to Burlington, it's 300 miles at, what is the current, 58 cents?
Yeah, 68 by.
Times
Rent
58.
a car around here.
That's $174.
Go to rent
You
it.
can rent a car for about $60.
Round trip.
From where?
Where?
Enterprise.
Where's that?
It's up on Putney Road.
Oh.
There's probably another one down. We use Enterprise. That's what I use when I go to Waterbury, Burlington, Berry. Yeah. Because they only allow us to use our own vehicles if there's no rent-a-car or no fleet car available. And if we have to use our own vehicle, we get half the mileage reimbursement. So it makes sense to rent a car for $60.
So what's the case, you're speaking of, that if there are multiple attendees?
We carpool.
Yeah, yeah, it's
One-
expected.
One
right?
rental car, four employees go.
We can look into it.
And again, if you don't want to ride in the rental car, you
You drive
drive
around
yourself.
the house,
I
right?
mean, you
I
know.
don't think any of us charge mile or reimbursement anyway. I mean, at this table,
I haven't.
so I've never charged for mile or reimbursement or meals, so.
Maybe you could
But,
try
yeah,
it.
you know, that's good, but we do need to not,
Well, yeah, for
not
future,
expect it.
for future use, yeah. So, yeah, that's something we can look into.
Yeah.
The only additional expense to that would be obviously filling up the car, but that's part of your rental. Do you guys do the automatic fill
We
up?
do the automatic fill-up.
So it's an extra $30 on top of your rental or whatever,
Depends on how heavy a rate foot you have.
yeah.
Because, I mean, it varies from.
We all know Chris has a very heavy right foot based on safety.
But they fill it up for you.
But,
Right, they fill it up, but it's part of your package.
Right.
yeah.
Just pick it up, go do your thing.
That's a great idea. Save your
Yeah, I
car.
mean, I like the idea that if only it saves wear and tear on your personal vehicle, particularly in the winter.
It's true.
And you're getting a fairly new car and everything's ready to go.
Right. Thank you.
Okay. Ordinance enforcement, appointment of custodial officials and appointment of enforcement officials. So this is gonna be a long one for us.
So speaking of bringing back from a training, what we learned at the training to help the town, this was the last one that I was up in Montpelier doing. So in order to start enforcing, and I gave you kind of a copy of what I wrote as far as a warning ticket, if people want to use it. And that just kind of gives you an idea of what we have on the books that we have fines set for. Again, we've got to get rid of the bicycle ordinance, but I'll get that on the list to get rid of that. But these are all the things that we actually have fines for. We'd have to take the parking out of there because our enforcement officials will not be able to do anything motorized vehicle related. So they can't do anything with ATVs, snowmobiles, or cars. That's all has to be done by a law enforcement officer. But I tried to think of everybody that might possibly want to, or that you might want to empower to issue tickets and fines. So this is kind of the list I came up with. We can start scratching off before I start calling everybody to get birthdays and
Why is it necessary to have a birthday?
The Judicial Bureau requires it has to be a name, it cannot just be a title. It's gotta be a name and a birthday of the person. And I would also have a training session for everybody who decides that, yes, they're going to write tickets, because there's a lot of important stuff to know before you actually pick up that ticket book and start writing stuff out. It's a responsibility that needs to be taken seriously. And there may be people on this list that you want that may say, no, I don't want to do it.
Yeah, you can take my name off from there. I don't want anything to do with this.
See, that's what I need to know.
Yeah. Writing tickets to the
Oh, really?
taxpayer.
We can get,
I put,
we can get taken off.
you can absolutely get taken off. I just guessed.
Yeah, and if you read how
And,
that's
you know,
written
some
in
towns
there,
had the whole
it's not even
select board
written
on and some
properly in
didn't.
the ordinance
Because,
what they're
I know that like for
classified.
noise
So
issues
they
and stuff, you
actually
guys
have
get.
semi-automatic
I-
built into
I
that.
just put everybody on here.
So is everybody in agreement on this table that we don't want to be in this loop?
You do that.
No select board members
No
want
select
to be
board
on this
members?
list?
I don't want anything to do with that.
Jeff?
I don't need to.
So no select board members?
Okay.
Question for you.
Sure.
What tickets are you using? Are you using the Vermont State VCVCs? Or are you creating your own ticket, or?
The tickets are issued through the Judicial Bureau, so we don't actually have them yet because we don't have any enforcement officials or, what's the other thing?
This is the beginning of the process
we
to be
don't-
able to do all of that.
Right.
Okay, because when I read the ordinance, I can't remember which one it was, but when I read one of the ordinances, at the very bottom of it, should you be, I don't remember the exact wording, but should you be issued a ticket, check made payable to the town of Vernon. If you read the back of the VCVC through the state of Vermont, there are 3 boxes which you check off when you get a ticket. And one of them is you deny the allegation, one of them is you plead no contest, the other is you plead not guilty and request a hearing. In the ordinance, all you have is that, you pay the fine and that's it. So there's no ability for somebody to say, yeah, I want to check off the thing and I want to have a hearing. It was just an automatic, you've got to, cut a check to the town. And so that needs to
We
be
will make sure our
changed.
ordinances follow the tickets. I haven't seen the tickets, actually, and no checks would come to the state, to Vernon. They all go to the Judicial Bureau and then they send us a check.
Yeah,
So
I
there are
realize that.
some logistics that need to be taken care of, but we need to get those
Like I
tickets
said,
out.
we are in the very beginning
This is-
process of this and
Yeah.
don't have that knowledge that you have,
Right.
being a previous police officer.
Still have.
But this is the first, this is the first step, is to assign some people, get our tickets in order, get our ordinances in order, and then go.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, because you can't send it off to the Judicial Bureau and request a hearing without somebody that's gonna, you can't plead not guilty to something according to the ordinance.
I think it should just be the constables, the fire chief, the assistant chief, and the health officer.
Not animal control.
Oh, the assistant fire
He's
chief?
the second constable.
Oh,
so-
okay, yeah.
But yeah, I guess it should say animal control in case we have another second constable that decides they don't want to do that because they're an elected official and they have that right.
They don't even need the
they don't-
titles, I just put
I
them
question
on.
the same thing as why wouldn't we put second constable next to Jesse? And I guess we don't need the title, we just need the name and the date of birth.
Yeah, I-
And whatever
So
official
after
capacity
every
they sit
election,
in.
we have to change this? It can't be,
No, it's.
Yes.
Oh, we do?
Yes.
You cannot put just the title, it's gotta be the person and the birthday.
But if the person doesn't get,
Then I just write another letter, like
Okay.
the one that I'm writing, and give them the name and the birthday. and-
so what happens if somebody says, I'm not paying this?
Then they go to court, just like the speeding ticket, they will go to court.
What are these tickets you're talking about?
Well, right now, we have fines for mostly animal control is a big one, that our animal control officer has no meat in when he's trying to enforce the animal control laws. We also have fines for use of alcohol in public places, discharge of an automatic firearm, bicycles, that are not registered, which will take care of that.
You mean the bicycles that little kids ride?
Yes, it's just an old
1968.
ordinance that really needs to be
Many,
taken out
many
of the
years ago,
books.
you had
Yeah,
to
my
register your
boys had to
bike,
do
and
it, yeah.
and it's still, the ordinance
It's
still exists,
still there.
we gotta get rid of it. It's kinda like in Michigan, if you swear in front of a woman or child, you can get a fine.
We also have a noise ordinance and plowing and snow blowing, so like if somebody's blowing snow into the road. So those are things that we actually have fines for, but we have no medium to enforce them.
Isn't that still a health officer,
She's an assistant health officer.
even though she doesn't live in Vernon?
There's no requirement that she
Okay.
needs to, but, do you want me to take the assistant health officers off?
I'm not sure about that, because if Mark's not in town, they're
Right, I'll leave them on.
the people that we call.
I truthfully don't like anything to do with this, so I don't care what you guys put on there and take off. I think that this is insane and that we're only going to upset people and people are still not going to pay it. Because what's the penalty after you go to court? It's the same, are they gonna suspend your driving license, like if you don't pay a fine in the state of Vermont? What is the ultimate
I think that
penalty?
they could, yeah, actually.
But does this tie into the emergency service? Well, some of it does, obviously, because if you're, I don't really understand it.
I mean, the whole thing is that we have ordinances in town that say if you let your dog run on somebody else's yard over and over and over again, you can expect to pay a ticket for it. And right now, we have no way of doing that. So if there's not gonna be any enforcement, then we need to rethink the ordinances that we have. Because we've got it on there and it just doesn't mean anything unless we do this. And people like the animal control officer have specifically asked to have some sort of medium to do it. And that's why I did this.
I think that we are opening every person that we name on that list up to either getting yelled at, spit on, or, and these aren't law enforcement officers that we're asking to do this. And we are opening them up to just some type of unnecessary, it doesn't make sense to me.
And you don't have to do any of this.
They
I was just
can
gonna
refuse
say,
to
you're
do
gonna
it.
ask.
You don't have to write a ticket if you don't want to.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
I
obviously
want
not
if I
want
get
to. And they don't
the
have to write tickets.
Right.
There's,
Like some of these
nothing's
kind of
forcing them, but if
ambiguous
they are in a
definition,
situation where
like
they feel
noise,
it's
is there a
warranted,
decibel
do you want
limit?
these people to
Do I
have
get
the
a
power to
decibel
do that? That's
meter
basically the
from-
question. Or do you not wanna do it at all?
But just what you said right there, though, they can pick and choose, then that goes against the ordinance that we have in place anyway. If the person that is put on this piece of paper says you can write this ticket, and they say, I don't want to do that, then that ordinance is still useless.
So if Jeff's dog bites me, bites one of my grandkids,
I only have cats.
I know.
If your cat scratches,
Yeah, well, the cat doesn't work, but we have a dog or animal ordinance. So I'm going to sue the town because you didn't do your job.
But something like that, law enforcement would be involved in.
Yeah.
And then that takes the burden off from our,
So why do we have a dog why do we have the ordinance then?
Well, it's the ones that are running wild too, and,
Yeah, I know I get calls all the time.
you know,
Another question
harassing
for you.
people.
we'll hold off until we finish with the select board, and then we'll get you guys in the audience. Thank you.
I mean, this is something you have to do.
No, it comes up all the
It's
time.
just
It's like,
requested.
but if you have an ordinance, you should either enforce it or get rid of it.
and I agree with you, but if the person that is listed here has the ability to say, I'm not writing a ticket for that, even though it was a violation of the ordinance, then there's no point in any of it.
Right.
Well, law enforcement officials do that all the time. They have
Yeah.
they have the discretion to, if they pull you over for speeding, they have the discretion to just give you a warning or,
They're not pull you over.
yeah.
period.
So it's the same kind of thing.
Except that they're law enforcement with training and they're willingly put into that situation. These are our residents that we're asking them to do so, I don't know.
Well, can't
I
they-
just don't agree with it.
Can't they refuse to do it?
They can, but then what's the
Absolutely.
point in the ordinance,
Well,
is what
there
I'm.
might be one or two on here that say we will do it.
Some of them have requested this. Some of them on this list have requested tickets
To have something.
to have something because they're out there with nothing. And they are trying to do their job, so that's how this started, was
Is
they
there
asked.
a different way that it could be, we have a violation of the ordinance, can it just be billed from the town without doing this? Couldn't we send
I
them a
don't
bill?
believe so.
Okay.
Cindy's shaking her head no too, so,
No? Okay.
so between the two no's, that's a pretty solid no.
So I guess, do we want to give those folks that want the opportunity to enforce the ordinances that they're in charge of, the ability to do so or not? That's the
That's it.
question.
I think so.
I think so. I mean, if people on this list already expressed an interest in doing so.
They didn't all, I honestly
No,
just
I know.
guessed at anybody that might. You know, I figured, I put Dave on here because he's out plowing all the time, and if he goes over and he has to plow over somebody's snow blowing, there's stuff, I just guessed who might want,
But
have the
yeah,
opportunity.
no, I mean, I agree, like, if they're not gonna be enforced at all, there's just no reason to have any ordinances. And
Price of
I
ordinances,
think some of these are worthwhile in retaining.
Mm-hmm.
And then every March, we have to send the state of Vermont a updated list of who
Individuals.
has permission to write these out.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But every March, we send lists everywhere.
I'm making sure I'm on the same page
Yeah.
here, that's all.
Yeah.
And then out of these, I mean, if we had somebody discharging a automatic firearm, then I'm pretty sure state police are going to be somewhere involved in that.
Yeah, because I mean, that automatic is not semi-automatic.
Yeah, and the way that that's written in that book needs to be addressed if we're going to do this as well, because that makes it sound like any semi-automatic weapon is also included in this.
Wait, what book? The policy
in
book?
The ordinances, yes, where it defines automatic weapon. The way that I read it, it sounds like it includes a semi-automatic.
Because didn't we just do that? Didn't we just update that ordinance?
I thought we did away with it a long time ago.
It's still in that book.
Is it? Okay.
Okay.
Maybe it's something else firearm related.
Well, we spent a
did
lot
the
on
noise
the
ordinance.
noise, yeah, which related, or came about because of
that.
firearms.
So are we happy, I guess the custodial, let's start at the beginning. If we want to go forward with this, which it sounds like the majority of us want to go forward with this, so those folks that want to enforce their ordinances can, we need to appoint a custodial official.
I thought we already did that.
No, we didn't. And then we need to appoint the enforcement officials that are on this list after that. So I would suggest that because Michelle sits in the office, that she is the custodial official, meaning, you know, the person that sends this list every year and that kind of
that's what it
thing.
is.
Administrative.
Yes.
I agree.
That person does not have ticket writing.
So I make a motion that we appoint the town administrator as the custodial official for ordinance enforcement.
Second.
So moved and seconded to appoint the town administrator as the custodial official for ordinance enforcement. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay. So, now let's get back to this enforcement list. We've already exonerated ourselves from this list. So, my suggestion for this list is to leave everybody as it is and address those folks that haven't said that they want to, you know, be a part of it. So ask Dave, and if Dave says, yes, I want to be able to say, stop putting your snow in the road because it's, you know, interfering with our plowing, that he has the ability to do that. I don't feel personally comfortable just appointing these people without having those conversations with those people. To Chris's point,
Absolutely.
if somebody doesn't want to do it, then we don't want to appoint them. So,
Agree.
right?
And then if Jesse is out as the animal control officer and writes a ticket, and somebody is upset and beats the crap out of him, who covers that?
We have insurance for that.
But, okay, all right.
But I mean, that could happen in his animal control officer
Right,
function now.
yeah.
He can, go pick up a dog in the middle of the field and bring it home, and why'd you touch my dog? I mean, it can happen regardless. Obviously, giving somebody tickets a little more tense situation than bringing your dog back, but
Use the warning first.
yeah.
Question? Is there any cost to having people who write the tickets? Do they have to be bonded or any kind of extra insurance for them to be able to do that? No? Just anybody can write a ticket
Yes.
if their laws are on that list?
Yeah, but they can't write a ticket for just anything. So that's why they need to sit down and have some training about what they can and cannot write tickets for.
Right, but there's no cost to the town, no added insurance because they're gonna be writing tickets?
No.
There's benefit if somebody pays their fee and we get a portion of it back.
Duly noted.
Kevin, go ahead.
Yeah, just a couple of things. One of the things that Chris brought up, somebody gets a ticket and says, hey, I'm not gonna pay it, do whatever you need to do. Is your benefit off the tickets gonna cover either the town attorney or whoever writes the tickets for going to court to testify and do all that good stuff? Research, testify, get the papers in order and all that good stuff. Time involved in that, you gotta make sure that, the benefit is gonna outweigh.
And who's paying
It
for
would
that
be-
person's time to go
That-
to court?
The person who goes to court is the person who wrote the ticket.
And who's paying them for their missed time at
It-
work?
They're all these people are on stipend, unless you wanna take Dave off, he's the only one that's salaried. Everybody else
So we're
on this
asking
list-
these people to take time away from their paying full-time job.
Yes,
To go to court for a town ordinance, and we're not going to pay them?
yes.
We're not asking
Cool.
them anything.
Well,
We're seeing if they wanna, that's why we're not appointing anybody tonight. We're
But-
asking
but
them
if
if they wanna
somebody-
be involved
if-
in this.
But even if they say, yes, I would love to write tickets, and then that person decides to take them to court, we're asking somebody that is a public servant, pretty much a volunteer, to give up more of their time to go to court over a $50 ticket? I don't know. I think this is
Well, I mean,
ridiculous.
That would, whoever wrote the ticket, and if it is going to court, they don't show up.
Yeah, they could,
Then- then
and they own the
charges
ticket,
get
they could
dropped.
also just say, I forgive the ticket, it's up to them. Whoever
So
writes that
still,
ticket-
this whole thing is pointless, because they can just not go to court, because they're going to lose money. They can say, I don't want to write the ticket. I mean, it just,
I think it's important to have an enforcement vehicle if you're doing it. If
Or-
you don't wanna do this, I would just say to take all of your fines off the books then.
Or
That
another
would be
thing
my
to
suggestion,
throw in
that's
there
all.
is, if somebody says, somebody goes to court and says, yep, I was found guilty, well, hey, I want to take this to the next level. And, I've had people, want jury trials on speeding tickets. Is that going to involve the town attorney? What's that going to cost? And then the other thing about the tickets is, Chris, you're right, if you're gonna have an ordinance, it should be enforced, but tickets are discretionary. Are you also gonna have warnings, written warnings? Somebody's dog is continuously running at large, write a couple of warnings, after a second warning, okay, the next time, it's gonna be a ticket, you write them a ticket, looks a lot better in court. So you have the discretion there. And then, if you wanna be the hardcore, we've got the ordinance, we need to enforce it. Somebody's dog breaks their leash and goes taking off down 142. Dog at large, technically, are you gonna write a ticket for that? I've seen some pretty big leashes busted by some pretty strong dogs. Are you gonna write a ticket for a dog that broke a leash? It's discretionary, so you can't sit there and say, yeah, because we've got this ordinance, we're gonna write a ticket.
But if we don't enforce our ordinances and some dog bites somebody,
That's true.
we're at fault.
So here's kind of my take on this, and take it with a grain of salt, is we're empowering these people to do what they do or do not want to do. We are not asking them as the town to go out and write 5 tickets a day. and bring in X amount of revenue. We're not asking them to do anything. They are signing up saying, yes, I want to be able to enforce my ordinance in this manner. That's their choice, with the understanding that it's a possibility that they have to go to court, and it's their choice whether they go to court or not, just like it is a police officer's. There's times that you can't show up to court because you're doing something else. So you miss a traffic court date. So we're not asking these people to do anything more than what they want to do. We're empowering them to have the ability to enforce the ordinance that they're in charge of if they so choose.
The one big difference with what you just said is, if I'm scheduled on something else, I'm up at training, I'm incapacitated, and I can't go to court, they postpone the ticket hearings and they postpone it until a later date. But as a law enforcement officer, we just can't sit there and write tickets and then tell the sheriff or tell whoever our boss is, I don't feel like going to court. I'm gonna write all these tickets, but I'm not gonna go to court.
I understand that. It's
So-
just, I'm not showing up because I don't want to show up.
Yeah.
Kind of thing with a police officer. I was just trying to use that as an example.
Right, but if
So-
we're empowering these people to enforce the ordinances, which yes, they should be enforced, but there is nothing here that one protects these people, that whether they can voluntarily say yes or no, we're still giving them that authority. We're giving them no protection on top of that, and we're offering them absolutely no financial reason to go to court to try and get the town the $50 to enforce this ordinance. We're asking them to lose money
The
to
animal
make
control
us
officer
money.
gets paid. I'm sorry, I should correct that. He does get paid, like $15 an hour. So he would get paid. Other than that.
He would get paid to go to court,
I would assume that if he's in court for his animal control duties.
but that's not the way that that's written down, so why
that's written
would,
down.
Do you have a contract with Jesse?
that says,
He gets paid
He gets
out of the
paid.
dog fund.
but how is that
So far, he's
worded?
submitted 2 months' worth.
But does that, would that, and I haven't seen the contract, would
What he
that
does-
cover him if he went to court?
He would put down the on his timesheet, if you want to call it that, the date, the time that he was at court, and then he'd submit it, and we pay it because we have a contract with him. But he's the only one we have a contract with. And it's paid out of the dog fund.
So I guess, again, the question comes back is, do we want to allow these people to enforce their ordinances, or do we not want to allow them to enforce the ordinances? That's it. That's all this is about.
I move that we ask these people to be fit enforcement officials.
Second.
So moved and seconded to offer these people the opportunity to enforce their ordinances. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Nay.
So we will table the appointment of the enforcement officers until we hear back from everybody.
Okay.
Accept Recreation Board resignation from myself and appoint Amy Emery.
I move that we accept Josh Hunter's resignation from the Recreation Board, and furthermore, that we appoint Amy Emery to that board.
Second. Ooh, what did you?
Moved and seconded to accept the resignation of Josh Hunter and appoint Amy Emery to the Recreation Board. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Policy to bill for emergency services.
So I apologize, Chris, I could not get all the information together quick enough to actually write a draft policy. And I figured before I jumped into that maybe if the board could discuss this long list of billable items, then I will jump into whatever you decide you want me to write a policy for. I hope that's okay.
Have you checked with other towns to see how theirs are written?
It's hard to find written ones. I did give you a copy of Milton's, I think it is. And different towns have different policies, so Guilford charges for some things. Chris was telling me that Putney charges for other things. Some towns don't charge for anything. It was a little tough digging, but I spoke to a couple of different towns and did find it's like night and day. I mean, the towns are so different in what they've decided to do, so I'm sure that we could find a policy that we could work with.
Did the LCT have a sample policy? Great.
Ultimately, the thought process behind this, and I started talking to Todd about it 2 years ago, that I don't care if we recoup $20 or if we get enough to fill the tank back up with diesel. I think anything is beneficial here, especially since it's going to the insurance companies. We're not asking the residents to pay for it. I believe, with the exception of a non-permitted burn, and was there one other one that was discussed or no? But anyway, otherwise it would all be charged to the insurance company. So I don't see a reason not to take their money.
I'm with you.
That's why you pay for insurance.
Exactly.
And they have to be there anyway,
Mm-hmm.
you know. I think I should also, do our guys go to 91?
If they did, it would have to be mutual aid, because
Okay.
Guilford covers our small section of that, to the best of my knowledge, because they have the emergency entrance over there.
Okay.
I do not think that we should bill for mutual aid. I think that that's a bad practice to get into. We see a lot of bigger towns like Brattleboro starting to bill to come here, or to other small towns, and they bill simply because they know that they're coming here and our guys aren't going to be here, or Guilford isn't going to. There's a reason that they've been called, and to start billing them when we're going to ask them for help at some point, I think is bad practice.
So you would keep that as an exemption?
Yes. I also don't like the allow chief, town administrator, or select board to not bill for services. I think that that sets a bad precedent and some favoritism. I say we bill them all, and then we could address that as a board should they decide to appeal it.
I agree.
I agree.
The person responsible for the billing, coding, follow-up, I think that that needs to be our treasurer's office. But I think that there needs to be something clearly spelled out in there that if it's John or JJ responding for EMS, or Todd or Keith, I think that their paperwork needs to be done in a timely fashion so that we can bill. But I think that the billing process should actually be done through the treasurer.
What's the equipment usage charge? What would that cover? Because I don't know.
So some towns, and I believe you included one in here.
Yeah, that's like.
They charge differently for how long they were on scene.
Okay.
Each separate piece of apparatus would be worth something
So
different
apparatus.
depending on size and how long and things like that. I believe some, and I'm sorry, Michelle, I didn't look through this,
No,
but I
it's right on
believe
the
some
front
of
page
them
this
bill
policy.
for
It had the equipment, like the light truck.
individual man hours, depending on how many people we have on scene.
Okay.
That's per call. That's like per hour.
That's a good idea.
And I don't know if there is a way, Michelle, to write the non-permitted burn. I don't know if there's a way to put something in there. Where was it the other day? They just had the large tannerite explosion that was felt all over. That was up in Cavendish. Fireworks. I don't know if there's a way to write it so that if you're doing something stupid that creates a fire, that you're also billed for that.
Would that fall under the hazardous materials incident?
I don't know. Fireworks, that, I'm just thinking somebody setting them off and catching somebody's
There
field
is-
on fire.
So in addition to non-permanent burn, I mean, there is the whole nuisance charge. You know, like if you have faulty wiring in your house and you don't fix it and.
That's
they're
fine,
out there all
yeah, I
the
could see
time
it
and
added
have
to that,
said-
that if you're doing,
Doing something stupid?
yeah, just put that right in there.
I want to put your name next to it.
Yeah, please.
I think I did see a policy that had something that alluded to that. So I couldn't find that.
And
But
as
see,
for
now,
whether or not it's
a
allowed,
bill like that would go to
the homeowner,
the homeowner,
correct.
okay? There's also,
Which I think that nuisance charge needs to go to the homeowner as well. I don't think that that should be an insurance.
okay, and, there was also, let's see, homeowner, there's also, reference, it's like, if it's a DUI or another violation, and that's why you're getting your vehicle towed. I forgot where I was reading it, but those bills would go to the homeowner instead of the.
And hazardous materials, I think that that could be two separate things. There can be an accidental one, but then if somebody is dumping used motor oil over their embankment, then
So that
that would
should
be
go
a
homeowner, you think?
I think that needs to be two separate things.
So how
One that's almost malicious and one that is accidental and it's just what it is.
Why would the fire department be called for someone dumping?
I don't.
Okay.
If somebody dumped 10 gallons of gas on their bonfire and decided
Yeah, I
to
can
touch
see that.
that off, now we have that incident plus the fire. I don't know. I'm just trying to make sure that we're not billing an insurance company for something that they're gonna be like, what?
And I think, doesn't it turn into a hazardous material if oil starts spilling on the highway, on the road?
Yeah.
They have to start picking that up.
Yeah.
Oil, fuel.
And we just dealt with it on this pond up here, whose pond, that the car rolled into a couple of years ago, that I don't believe they can still use that pond because of the hazardous.
Here in
material.
Skibbs.
Yeah.
And the insurance company doesn't cover that? Or will
I believe
cover
they
it?
would have.
They would have if there was.
Yeah.
She's still working on it.
So those, like, the vehicle recovery really needs, like, in Guilford, it goes through the tow companies. So we'd have to set up a meeting with all the tow companies, and the town of Vernon would submit their bill to the tow company, whoever towed the car, and then they submit it to the insurance company with their bill,
Right.
along with their bill.
And I think every tow company around here is being used by the same fire department, so it's
Yeah, I
pretty
think they
common
have a
practice to
list.
them, yeah, so.
And then for the EMS, when you start billing for that, then you're looking at medical coding that needs to be done. So, this is something that's not gonna get done in the next 2 weeks, but, I'll look at what we need to know to get that done, especially for Medicaid and Medicare.
And I think that Rescue Inc. would be extremely helpful in getting squared away with that as well.
So true. Another town only billed for non-residents for vehicle recovery. Do you wanna do that, or do you wanna bill for everybody? I'm just trying to get a basis of what I'm writing, that's all.
Go ahead.
I'm happy for everybody.
Yeah.
That's just my opinion.
If not, it should say something to the effect of criminal activity, DUIs or things like that.
Okay.
But I agree with Jeff that it should be everybody.
And do you wanna, exempt payment if insurance doesn't cover the cost? You wanna keep that? kind of
Unless it is
wording in there?
unless it's one that's billed directly to the homeowner.
Yeah, I agree.
And I know that that's what some of the fire chief was a little reluctant to do this. He was afraid that we were trying to get more money out of taxpayers, or that this was kind of a punishment to them if they had an accident. But as long as we're keeping it with the insurance company, that's what it's there for. And we can recoup some of our costs.
Okay, and so I'll ask you, did you get a chance to see the prices that Milton had? Is everybody okay with that? I mean, I would be totally guessing, I have no idea where to start with how much it costs to run that truck out.
It's big, it's big.
It's a big
I would go, where's Putney? Do you have Putney's?
No, we do not have puppies. I'm actually waiting for them to call me back.
Yeah.
He hasn't called you back. I'll go up and see him at some point.
I think the rates make sense because regardless of the size of the town, depending on the, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I've never been on the fire department, depending on the size of the incident is how many trucks you roll and that kind of thing.
Correct, yeah. I'm just wondering if is there anything in this that talks about man hours? Because I believe that we can bill for that too.
This one has, yeah, that one. It just says hazardous material fires, $100 per truck plus $30 per hour per fire. Suggestions. They're just suggestions.
So this one says $1 per every $1,000 of estimated value of the vehicle.
I mean, if nothing else, I think that we should be able to bill for whatever the state's minimum wage is per person that is responding to that call. Because we're offering them missed wages, so we should be able to recoup that somewhere.
I'll check to see if we can do that, just to make sure, because on the University of Vermont thing, it doesn't say time, it just says standby and fire guard fees. But it doesn't say, but I'll find out as we go through this to make sure that, so.
I think Milton has a paid fire department, but maybe if I would.
They must up there, they're.
Yeah.
It's similar size to Brattleboro population-wise.
Yeah.
I know that because my in-laws are from there.
Would you say to guess $15 an hour for the firefighters?
I said at a minimum wage, until we find out what we can do, but yes, I would.
Because it's gonna be 15 in what year anyways.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Okay, and then the other part of this whole thing is, well, if we make this money, what do you wanna do with money? Do you wanna allocate it back to the fire department? Should that be part of the policy? Should it not be part of the policy, and just go into the general fund? Should it go specifically to the capital plan toward purchase of fire trucks? I mean, it's up to you.
Where does the money go that we get sent back from tickets that are written from the sheriff's department? Where does that money go?
I have no idea.
That's, isn't that an income line on that? Safety, contracted safety? I thought he
I'm not
had
sure.
that in the budget.
I
just don't know where it
it is, but I don't
disperses.
know where,
You know
so
what
it just
I mean?
goes to the general fund then, if it's
Yeah.
going on a line item there.
Yeah, I think it should go to general fund because we're asking the treasurer to do a lot of the bookwork. And so, to the fire department budget, you know, that doesn't go, I think it should go to the general fund. Because there's more than just the fire department involved here.
I'm fine with, yeah. I just want the money to come to the town one way or the
Yeah.
other.
General fund, yes?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
And depending on what that is, we can allocate that much more to the fire department, a percentage of it.
Oh, so if it showed as income for the fire department, it would end up in the general fund anyways.
It would.
So they can show it as income.
But if you wanted to put it toward like fire trucks, then we could, you know, if you would write a policy, it'd be part of the capital plan and be put every year for that, but that's totally up to you. Just if you're gonna make money, and this could, you know, if we're charging for everything, it could end up being a significant chunk
I
of.
think the
of
EMS
money.
one is the one that would be the most money brought in. And that's also the most calls that they run, so.
Okay, so that gives me something. Anything else that anybody wants me to make sure to look into as I'm crafting this? Oh, okay.
Appreciate it.
And I'll talk to Cindy about that too, so that she knows, so that she doesn't get surprised by having that put in her office.
And I would imagine that we would have to find some kind of training for that medical billing to get her into.
I'm guessing,
Okay.
yeah, and hopefully in the research that I do, I'll be able to find something that.
Okay. We're skipping the salvage yard permit, public participation on non-agenda items.
I have a non-agenda item, actually, it's about the agenda. I know that Melissa Allen had requested to be on the agenda.
Mhm.
She's not, she wasn't called down for any of the items that are on the agenda. Where would she fit into this agenda? She specifically asked to be on the agenda, you said she would be. But she was not called down.
She could speak in public comments regarding agenda items or non-agenda items.
Okay, so is this my opportunity?
Sure.
Okay. I have a little presentation.
Okay.
Should I come up to the table?
Sure.
Okay. All right. Okay. So my name is Melissa Allen. I live on Tyler Hill Road. I've been in town for a few years now and I grew up here. I started noticing a few discrepancies in some of the select board spending, and so I've kind of put together a few things that I wanted to share with you. Because I know that taxpayers have entrusted you with their tax money, and I would just like to point out some things and see if we can all work together to be a little bit better about it. Give you this.
So many eats today.
Staples quite expensive today. So I can just, so I'm just gonna start out and I'll just go on my spreadsheet here. You'll see that it's cut quite small. I wanted to get it all on one page, but I have everything in chronological order so you can follow along as I kind of tell you and kind of break down the last year and a half-ish of some things that I noticed. The first item that I want to point out is Michelle's timesheet, and this was dated the week ending 2/24/18. Specifically noting 2/21 was a full day of work for Michelle.
So if we're gonna be talking about
Yep.
somebody's personnel,
Yep.
we need to do this in executive session.
Okay, gotcha. There are some personal items, but I don't know exactly what that would qualify for.
Well, if you're talking about people's timesheets, their pay, their vacation time, any of that is
Because I
a
took
personnel
all of
item.
these from public records.
Mhm.
So there's nothing that the public can't get.
Correct,
that I
but if
have.
you're discussing changes or those things that needs to be done in executive session, it'd be because it's a personnel issue.
Okay,
It's the
there's-
same thing that we just did with Cindy.
Gotcha. So there's nothing in here that I'm recommending for a change. That would be up to you. I'm just pointing out some discrepancies that I found. So if that needs to be executive, I guess it can be executive.
It probably should be, I think.
I agree.
Okay,
I'm gonna make a motion that we go in
Okay.
safe session.
sure.
My glasses back on. I'd like to go in executive session with Michelle.
Melissa Allen.
Why do I call you Michelle? With Michelle and Melissa.
Yeah.
I've only known Missy since she was little.
Sure.
To evaluation, let's see. Discussion or consideration of records or documents accepted from the access to public records, no. Hold on. All right. I'd like to go into executive session to discuss grievances other than tax grievances. Premature general public knowledge and its personnel.
Second.
Moved and seconded to go into executive session.
And then I move we go into executive session.
Oh, sorry, based on personnel.
Okay, then I move we enter executive session to discuss this personnel.
Second.
Moved and seconded to go into executive session. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, those opposed? We are in executive session at 8:05. executive session at 8:05, out at 8:34. No action was taken. Correspondence and town admin report, please.
You have all of the correspondence in your packets, and yesterday, speaking of travel, ran up to Montpelier for a photo op and a press opportunity with the governor for our big check of $5,000 for the rec center, so
Thank you very
that was
much.
pretty awesome.
Yes.
And that's it.
It's the first rec one we've got, isn't it?
What's that?
It's the first rec one we've got, isn't it?
Is it?
I think so.
All right.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Thank you very much.
Anything
It's a
else?
small one.
You get to talk to the governor?
I did.
All right.
Said hi, Dan.
Does he know where?
Got my picture taken with him. Got an email to me. Hey. And actually got to meet face to face to the woman that I deal with a lot of the state, who, and I see her on email all the time, so it was nice to finally be able to put a face to her name and be able to shake her hand. And that was cool.
Great.
All right, that's all you got?
That's all I got.
Next meeting is tomorrow at 6:30, same bad time, same bad channel. We are adjourned.